Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are focusing all our energy on one single, really high-stakes incident. The high-intensity car explosion that happened in Delhi, right near the Red Fort Metro Station back on November 10th, 2025. And we're not just, skimming the headlines here. Our mission, for you, the listener, is to pull apart the sources to understand three key things: the exact facts of what happened, the immediate scale of the destruction, and maybe most critically, the security context at the time. If you want to get inside the minds of the investigators right when they arrived on scene, this is the deep dive you need.
And we really have to start with the location. It seems like a small detail, but it's important because there was some confusion in the first reports.
Okay.
The Red Fort area, or Lal Kila, is obviously a huge landmark. Some early news associated this with India Gate, which is miles away.
Right, a totally different part of the city.
Totally different.
Yeah.
But we need to be very clear. Our focus is exclusively on the area around the Red Fort Metro Station. That specific geography is key to understanding the whole response.
Okay, so let's zero in on that. The incident itself. The sources place it right near gate number 1 of the metro station, which is on Subhash Marg, a very, very busy road in Delhi. So the location alone tells you something.
It does. And what's really fascinating here, and, immediately raises red flags for any forensic team, is the car and what it was doing.
Right.
The explosion happened inside a Hyundai i20, but the reports all stress this point. The car was slow moving. In fact, it had stopped at a traffic signal just moments before this catastrophic blast.
Wait, okay, that detail, a high-intensity blast in a stopped car, that feels profound.
It is?
It's not like a car bomb meant to go off down the road or some sort of sudden failure. What does a stopped vehicle tell investigators right out of the gate?
Well, it immediately puts them on two sort of primary tracks. If the car stopped, you can probably rule out a pressure-sensitive trigger.
Okay.
So it leans toward either a timed device set to go off at a certain time no matter what, or, and this is much more troubling, a remotely triggered device.
Meaning someone was watching.
Exactly. An observer waiting for the car to be stationary and, surrounded by other cars, other people. Maximum collateral damage. And the fact it's called high intensity means it was designed for that exact purpose.
That distinction, timed versus remote, that's huge. It's the difference between a lone act and active surveillance on the ground.
Yeah.
And the human cost reflects that catastrophic design.
It absolutely does. The initial reports, the human toll was just devastating. For one incident in one car, we're talking about at least 8 to 10 people killed instantly.
Wow.
And then around 20 to 24 others injured. The numbers alone and that ratio of killed to injured, it just confirms this was an incredibly powerful explosive, not some crude, low-grade device.
And the car itself,
Yeah.
the primary vehicle, was basically gone. The reports say the Hyundai i20 was, I think the term was completely destroyed.
Total disintegration. But you're right, the damage didn't stop there. Because as you said, this is Subhash Marg. It's dead.
Yeah.
So that initial blast triggered a huge secondary fire. All the cars were packed in tight, bumper to bumper at the light, and this fire it engulfed several nearby vehicles.
So it spreads.
It spreads fast. We know that public transport was hitty rickshaws, auto rickshaws, and other cars were all just incinerated or severely damaged.
Now that detail about the e-rickshaws, that paints such a clear picture of the chaos. It's not just one car anymore. It's a major event that shuts down the whole area. I can't even imagine the forensic challenge. Sifting through metal that was hit by a blast in a massive fire.
Oh, absolutely. The heat from that fire, it contaminates everything. It makes recovering explosive residue and device fragments so much harder. And that right there dictated the scale of the response.
Which brings us to the next piece of this, the immediate high-level response. Because of where it happened, the scale of it all, the national security machine just kicked in instantly. The explosion triggered a high alert across the entire national capital region and even the surrounding states.
And that alert wasn't just, a press release, it was operational. You saw the immediate mobilization of the absolute top-tier investigative teams. And we really need to look at who was sent in, because that tells you exactly what the authorities suspected from minute one.
So let's break that down. We hear the acronyms NIA, NSG, FSL, but what do they actually do in a scenario like this?
Okay, so first, the National Investigation Agency, the NIA. They're brought in when there's a suspected terror link or a threat to national security. Their job isn't local crime. It's tracing networks, ideology, connections across states. They're looking for the organized plot, the who and the why.
The big picture.
Exactly. Then you have the National Security Guard, the NSG. Specifically, they're bomb disposal and counter-terror specialists. They're on the ground post-blast looking for secondary devices, analyzing the blast crater, figuring out what kind of explosive was used. They handle immediate threats and technical analysis.
And the third one?
The Forensic Science Laboratory, or FSL, they're the science. The chemical and physical analysis, meticulously collecting residue, fragments of the device, anything that gives them a chemical signature to trace the source of the explosives.
And having all three show up at once.
It signals this was immediately viewed as a sophisticated national-level threat. No question about it.
The speed of that mobilization, it really says a lot about the atmosphere at the time. And this is the piece of context from the sources that just ties it all together. This explosion didn't happen in a vacuum.
No, it didn't. That's a critical point. You have to remember, this whole investigation started right after a major, highly publicized security success. Authorities had just busted an interstate terror network.
And they seized a lot of material.
A huge quantity of explosive-making materials. So, if you're an investigator, you don't look at this Red Fort blast as an isolated event. You have this massive new intelligence file from that bus sitting on your desk.
And that has to shape your entire theory of the case from the beginning.
Precisely. It forces you to prioritize what they're calling the potential terror angle. They're immediately trying to connect these two events. Is this explosion a reaction to the bust? You know, a desperate retaliatory act?
Or
Something else.
Or, and this is the more worrying possibility, was it a sign that the materials they seized were only part of the story?
But the network was bigger than they thought.
Exactly. The question becomes, did this organization have other cells, other caches of explosives that were not found? And could those be what was used at the Red Fort? That possible connection is what drives the whole investigation.
So let's just recap the core facts we've established for you, the learner, pulled straight from these initial reports. The location, Subhash Marg, near Gate 1 of the Red Fort Metro Station. The date, November 10th, 2025.
Right. The mechanism was a high-intensity blast inside a stopped Hyundai i20.
And the immediate devastating scale. 8 to 10 people killed, around 20 to 24 injured, and widespread fire damage to surrounding traffic. And if you look past those numbers to the bigger picture, I think the most profound insight is the decision to deploy the NIA and the NSG right away. Their involvement tells you everything. The nature of the explosion itself was enough to convince authorities that this wasn't random.
They saw sophistication.
They saw sophistication, and they immediately connected it to that pre-existing threat, the terror network they had just taken down.
Which leaves you with a really powerful question to think about. If the investigation proves there is a link between this explosion and the materials they seized earlier, what does that tell you about the speed and resilience of these networks? And on the other hand, if they find no link at all, what does the sudden appearance of a completely new, highly effective bomb-making capability suggest about the security challenges facing a city like Delhi? That context, just from the sources we have, shows you the true stakes of what happened.